After taking the most public L in hip-hop history, how exactly does Drake bounce back? By now, I'm guessing everyone's heard about Kendrick Lamar's pop-out concert on Juneteenth. The highlight was definitely Kendrick Lamar performing Not Like Us 6 times in a row.
I see dead people. Let's try it again.
Now, maybe the audience screamed encourage 5 times, or maybe this was a subtle jab at the sixth god himself. Either way, it's clear that Kendrick was taunting Drake. So the question is, what does Drake do now?
All right.
Let's face it, hip-hop has never seen a humiliation on such a huge scale before. Fans, podcasters, DJs, rappers, everybody is basically crowning the battle between Drake and Kendrick Lamar as the greatest rap battle of all time.
K-Dot, you are the king of the West. That's the kind of kings do.
But at the same time, Drake's stock has taken a huge nosedive when it comes to public perception. Drake has deleted his diss tracks Family Matters and The Heart Part 6 off his social media pages. There's videos going viral of middle schoolers mocking Drake by singing along to Kendrick's diss track Not Like Us, where he calls him a p***ball. A minor. That lit. Drake is one of the best-selling artists in the world, but after being embarrassed by Kendrick, he's definitely in uncharted territory. Maybe Drake should take some pointers from past rappers who have also had to salvage their careers after beefs didn't go their way. We're gonna break down some of the most iconic rap battles of all time and take away lessons that Drake might learn from each one. What strategies can he apply to take his career off life support and double back?
If you are Drake's PR team, you are his strategy team. What are you doing? What's the strategy?
Let's start with one of the most vicious feuds of the 2000s, 50 Cent and Ja Rule. Both 50 and Ja were rappers who came up from Queens, New York. 50 claims their beef started when a member of Ja's crew, Murder Inc., stabbed him. Ja, meanwhile, claims that 50 was jealous of his success and popularity in New York.
What I've realized is when you entertain clowns, you become a part of the circus.
Either way, both artists rose in popularity to become multi-platinum superstars. 50 was absolutely relentless in going after Ja and dragging his reputation. He dropped song after song on Ja's head. Your Life's on the Line mocked Murder Inc. and had 50 saying,
"Now if you say my name in your rhyme, you better watch what you say. You get carried away, you could get carried away."
On Back Down, 50 made fun of Ja's crossover pop songs and his voice. You sing for and sound like the Cookie Monster. And on Wanksta, 50 made up a whole term for industry gangsters.
You say you a gangster, but you never done. You say you a wankster, but you need to stop running.
The song blew up in popularity and became a Billboard Hot 100 hit. Ja, meanwhile, struggled to come up with a knockout response. His response track, Clap Back, promised to take 50 to war, but didn't achieve the notoriety that 50's tracks did. Another song, Loose Change, labeled 50 as a snitch, but 50's strategy of spamming Ja Rule with as many diss tracks as possible was too overwhelming for Ja to overcome. Ja's reputation never really recovered after the battle with 50. While Ja enjoyed huge commercial success earlier in his career with blockbuster singles like Always on Time and Mesmerize, the beef with 50 led to a significant decline in his sales and popularity. And because Ja was never able to fully piece it up with 50, 50 has continued to troll and humiliate him to this day. In 2018, 50 bought out 200 front row seats at a Ja Rule show just so Ja would have to perform to an empty arena.
It was like on the what's the name? I just happened to see them on the
on StubHub or something?
Yeah, like it was like this for you to buy it, and I was like, that was so cheap, I might as well just buy it.
If you go on X, formerly known as Twitter, right now, people have been tweeting nonstop that Drake is the new Ja Rule. It's actually a fitting comparison because, like Ja Rule, Drake built a reputation on combining rap and R&B and collaborating with pop stars. And like 50 Cent, Kendrick beat Drake by being absolutely relentless, firing off diss track after diss track until Drake basically had to tap out. Drake could learn a lot from what happened to Ja Rule. While persistent attacks can also destroy a career, Ja also struggled to reinvent himself after the beef. His image was always defined by 50, who used his songs to paint him as a fake gangster, an ecstasy addict, and a wannabe Tupac. If Drake wants to avoid following Ja into Fire Festival irrelevance, he needs to find a way to keep Kendrick from having that much influence over his image.
Because I think ultimately, this is a humbling moment for Drake.
Next up is a battle between one of Drake's former enemies, Common and Ice Cube. In 1994, Common released I Used to Love Her, a song that lamented the direction hip-hop was taking. In I Used to Love Her, Common threw shade at gangster rap and West Coast hip-hop in particular, implying that they were ruining what made hip-hop pure in the first place. Ice Cube, who reps South Central LA and is famous for helping make gangster rap popular, took it very personally. His group, Westside Connection, dropped a diss track called Westside Slaughterhouse, where he ripped up Common.
All you suckers wanna diss the Pacific, but you bust never get specific.
Common fired back with The in You, where he systematically targeted Ice Cube's entire career, claiming that he had fallen off since his first album, alleging that Ice Cube had jacked the East Coast sound to get popular in the first place, and calling him out on his so-called hypocrisy. I heard a say you were a favorite rapper, so I had to slap her and violate you, a Muslim drinking brew. A lot of fans were surprised with how vicious Common got with The in You, especially since he had a reputation of being a so-called conscious rapper. Even more surprising is that Ice Cube and Westside Connection decided not to issue a response to The in You, which a lot of people took as an admission that Common had won the beef in a huge upset. In fact, The in You has since been called one of the best diss tracks of all time. Despite all this, both Common and Cube have gone on to enjoy long, successful careers. In fact, the two of them have actually reconciled and became close friends. Cube, despite losing the battle, has released critically acclaimed and beloved music for decades since, in movies and TV shows, and yeah, Cube is good, bro. Still, Common said that he once feared that this beef with Cube would descend into violence and is grateful that the whole exchange stayed on wax. There's some pretty important parallels between Common and Cube and Kendrick vs. Drake. A lot of people speculated that Drake would win the beef because he was more battle-tested because of his feuds with Meek Mill, Ye, and Pusha T. Meanwhile, some claim that Kendrick, a so-called conscious rapper, didn't have the viciousness and strategic discipline to win a battle against someone as seasoned as Drake. Drake could definitely duplicate Ice Cube's strategy after The in You, focus on releasing timeless and consistent music and put the beef behind him. Even though Cube took a really public L and didn't respond to Common's most scathing attacks, he restored his credibility by focusing on his craft. Drake could easily do the same.
No matter what music he ends up dropping within this era, he's gonna get clowned.
And I'm sure Drake paid super close attention to what happened after Jay-Z and Nas went head-to-head. As New York rappers, Jay and Nas experienced years of tension between one another before things finally blew up in the early 2000s. Nas was heralded as a critically acclaimed protege who released Illmatic when he was just 20 years old. Jay was seen as the drug dealer turned #1 hustler in the rap game who methodically grew a music career into a multi-million-dollar business empire. By 2001 though, Nas's career was seen widely as trending downward. His follow-up albums to Illmatic got mixed reviews, and fans claimed that he had lost the grit that gave his career a spark in the first place. Jay, meanwhile, was on a rapid ascent to become one of the best-selling rappers out there. When he put out Takeover in 2001, he systematically dismantled Nas's credibility as an artist, breaking down his discography and echoing whispers that he had fallen off.
Fell from top 10 to not mention at all.
Nas responded by dropping Ether on Jay's birthday, completely changing the narrative. Instead of having fallen off, Nas sounded reinvigorated and more aggressive than ever. He challenged Jay, attacking his personal life, his crew, and mocking him relentlessly. He accused Jay of trying to prey on the legacy of the late Biggie Smalls and stealing his lyrics. How many of Biggie's rhymes are gonna come out your fat lips? Wanted to be on every last one of my classics. Ether was so blistering that it changed the narrative around Nas right away. Instead of people calling Nas irrelevant, fans were now saying that Ether had gassed up his career and given him fresh purpose. Jay-Z was widely seen as having lost the battle, so he dropped another response called Super Ugly that tried to match Nas's viciousness. In Super Ugly, Jay bragged about sleeping with the mother of Nas's child, claiming that he skeeted in your Jeep and left condoms on your baby's seat. Instead of outmatching Nas when it came to Venom, Jay was widely criticized for the song. Right after it dropped, Jay appeared on Hot 97 and apologized for Super Ugly, claiming that his own mother told him the song went too far.
And then I go to do a Rockwear campaign in Arizona, and this dumb is on the radio, and we took a L.
Always listening to mama. That's crazy. Nas is almost unanimously seen as being victorious over Jay. At first, it seemed like their beef had become too bitter and personal to ever come back from. But in 2005, Nas made a surprise appearance at Jay-Z's I Declare War concert, and the two of them performed together. In the years since, they've collaborated numerous times and professed their mutual respect for each other. When the Drake and Kendrick battle first popped off, a lot of people compared their feud to what Jay and Nas went through. Like Jay and Nas, both Drake and Kendrick are commercially successful, extremely famous artists at the top of the rap game. Drake had compared himself with Jay numerous times, saying, "I used to want to be on Rockefeller, then I turned into Jay." If you go through the play-by-play of the battle, Drake made a lot of moves similar to Jay. As the more commercially successful artist, Drake used his stats and sales to downplay Kendrick's relevance. And when Kendrick dropped his first diss track, Euphoria, Drake got extremely personal with Family Matters, where he directly targeted Kendrick's longtime partner and children. Jay and Nas obviously coexist now as some of the most beloved legends in hip-hop history. Things might be raw right now, but Drake could definitely consider extending an olive branch to Kendrick in order to squash the whole thing for the good of the culture. Jay and Nas's beef is considered the heavyweight battle of their generation, just like how Drake and Kendrick's battle is seen today. Maybe the best way for Drake to move past this is to take a page out of Jay's book. If you can't beat him, join him. But maybe the most relevant case study for Drake is a battle he was already involved in, his longtime feud with Pusha T. Back when Drake was a teenager, dreaming of being a rap star, he was a Pusha T superfan. He even went on eBay and bought a microphone that was supposedly autographed by Pusha. Years later, when Drake became a rising star in the rap game, they became bitter rivals. In the song Dreams Money Can Buy, Drake said, "My favorite rappers either lost it or they ain't alive." Pusha interpreted that line as a shot towards him. For years, the two of them went back and forth with subliminal disses. On Exodus 23:1, Pusha threatened Drake and his label bosses Lil Wayne and Birdman. "Beef will have you praying to God, move your kids and have you hiding your mom." On Crosses, Crutches, and Caskets, Pusha implied that Drake doesn't provide for his own mother. "Is there shame when a multi-platinum rapper lives in squalor?" Drake replied on Two Birds, One Stone, where he tried to undercut Pusha's street credibility. "But really it's you with all these drug dealer stories. That's gotta stop though. You made a couple of chops, now you think you Chapo." That's fire. In 2018, things heated up when Pusha put out Infrared, where he called out Drake's persona and his reliance on ghostwriters. "How could you ever right your wrongs when you don't even write your own songs?" Drake responded immediately with Duppy Freestyle, where he continued to downplay Pusha's cocaine-selling past and his relevance. "I had a microphone of yours, but then the signature faded. I think it pretty much resembles what's been happening lately." Maybe most notably, Drake decided to mention Pusha's then-fiance's name by saying, "I told you keep playing with my name and I'ma let it ring on you like Virginia Williams." For his response record, The Story of Adidon, Pusha T went absolutely nuclear. He not only mentioned Drake's mother and father by name, but he made bombshell claims that Drake was hiding a child and was a deadbeat playing border control. He doubled down by mocking Drake's producer OVO 40 for having multiple sclerosis and even shared photos of a younger Drake posing in blackface. And Pusha's response made headlines. He not only outed Drake for having a son named Adonis, but he exposed an alleged Adidas marketing campaign that Drake had planned to use to introduce his child to fans. Instead of recording an official response, Drake posted a written apology for the blackface photos and eventually appeared on LeBron James's interview show, The Shop, to explain why he didn't release another diss record.
"I wanted to do other things. I didn't want to further your reputation or your career by rapping back at you and having this exchange. And that was it for me."
Many hardcore hip-hop fans criticized Drake for resorting to PR to reply to Pusha instead of jumping in the booth and making another song. During an interview with Rap Radar, Drake outright admitted that Pusha had won the beef.
"So there's not really much I can say better than Drake has a baby. He won. He won off that."
But despite all that criticism, Drake's strategy low-key worked. He released his 5th studio album, Scorpion, just weeks later, which went on to go 5 times platinum. Instead of further entrenching himself in the battle with Pusha, he did everything he could to move past it. The specter of his loss to Pusha T still haunts Drake's career. During the height of his Kendrick battle, there was a lot of callbacks to his battle with Pusha. Kendrick repurposed lines Pusha used to mock Drake's label situation on Euphoria, and even mentioned Pusha by name. "Yeah, all that pushing P, let me see you Pusha T." You better off spinning again on him how you think about pushing me. He's Terrace Thornton, I'm Terrace Crawford, yeah, I'm whooping feet. And on Kendrick's Meet the Grams, he accused Drake of hiding another child, doubling down on similar attacks Pusha had used on him years earlier. While Drake's loss to Pusha is obviously a lingering wound, it's safe to say that Drake could try his best to replicate the same strategy he used 5 years ago. Pusha outmaneuvered Drake with what Drake called himself a brilliant chess move. Now that Kendrick's done the same, Drake's best path forward might be copping to the L and moving on to release his next hit record. Even though Drake's battle with Kendrick is generational, there are clearly so many parallels to other famous rap beefs from years ago. So what kind of action plan can Drake craft that might help him move forward? Obviously, he needs to reflect and regroup. This means he should probably acknowledge that Kendrick beat him and that popular opinion is not on his side. Trying to ignore this reality is only going to make him look much more bitter and out of touch. That's why Ja Rule had such a hard time recovering his image after 50 dragged him back in the early 2000s. If Drake were to take some time away from the spotlight, it might make fans realize why they miss his music in the first place. Drake also may want to consider doing some artistic renovation. After taking such a public L, it's only fair to assume that fans are going to want something different from Drake. Part of the reason why Nas came back so hard after Takeover is that he landed on a new sound and became rejuvenated. If Drake were to experiment more and take more risks, it might make people more excited for what's coming next. Drake definitely could take his own lessons when it comes to image management. He locked all the way in on that route after his war with Pusha. If Drake focused on addressing the beef in a controlled manner by relying on documentaries or interviews, he might be able to reclaim his own narrative. He could even take the Jay-Z route by addressing his past and his growth. In recent years, Jay has shied away from his more allegedly misogynistic music like Big Pimpin' in favor of talking about how he's changed as a person. Since a big part of Kendrick's diss strategy was painting Drake as a misogynist, it's possible that Drake could take a page out of his mentor's book. But maybe most importantly, Drake could focus on quality over quantity. One of the most persistent criticisms of Drake over the last couple years is that he simply drops too much music. Since 2020, he's dropped 5 different projects, not to mention dozens of feature verses. If Drake were to just dial it back and focus on being a little more selective with his product, it might create more demand for his music post-beef instead of fans taking him for granted. But who knows? If Drake plays his cards right, he could turn one of the most humiliating moments of his career into a huge comeback that preserves his legacy and extends his run for another decade. But if he fumbles the next move, hip-hop fans will never let him forget it. Every move is crucial and all eyes are on Drake. Now that the pressure's on, let's see if he can deliver, or if Kendrick's beef was just the beginning of the end.